Hello, welcome to another video. So we're having fun with this bitoroidal transformer where you have two different flux paths with the secondary on the outside or back to the primary. I've covered all that. So when I first put this thing together, I think I sort of had some dumb luck, and then every change I made to try to improve things, it seemed made things worse. And one thing I've noticed is when I'm adding winds to this primary, it's improving things. And so my initial thought from a couple days ago was it might be the turns ratio, that you want this turns ratio closer match, but I'm starting to think maybe there could be a much more simple explanation. And to explain where I'm going with this, which I think this definitely has to play into it. I'm not sure how significant it is or not, but to get to the point. So if we put a resistance meter on here, it's measuring the resistance of the primary is 0.7 to 0.6 ohms. When I measured it with the LCR meter, I got about the same. The LCR meter doesn't do well when there's a lot of induction, I've found. When you change the frequency, you get really different readings. So I'll trust the voltmeter and say this is around 600, 700 milliohms. Now that's significant because we're discharging it through this switch. What's the resistance in this switch? 600, 700. It's 700 milliohms per the data sheet. So in other words, this thing has even a little bit less or the same resistance as the switch. So most of your resistance now is coming from the switch. So what happens when you take winds off? Well, you lose induction. What's shaping the Q factor? It's the pulse time over the tau time of the coil. The tau time of the coil is induction over resistance. So you lose induction as you're taking the winds off, but you don't lose a whole heck of a lot of resistance. So let's say we take, however many winds off, that this thing has gone down now to 500 ohms. So the induction goes way down, relatively speaking, and you've gone from only 14 to 12, 1.4 to 1.2 ohms of resistance instead of going from 7 to 5. And the more winds you take off, the more the resistance is being controlled almost entirely by this. So that, I have to guess, is why I'm seeing things improve when I'm throwing wire on. And when I first did this, I had a even thinner gauge wire and more winds on, and so that would fit. So if that's the case, then if we add winds on here, then the converse is also true. You're getting induction, but the resistance isn't going up all that much because a lot of the resistance is coming from there. And so that's what I'm going to do today, is I'm going to put another layer or two of winds on here, and if I'm correct, it'll work better. Now, I won't do it in this video, but then in another video to try to tease out the turns ratios, if it's primarily the issue of this resistance and this resistance, if I put another layer on the secondary or remove a layer, I'm not sure which yet, but if I put another layer on, it shouldn't get worse, and if I remove a layer, it shouldn't get better as I look to match the two. It might be that both are going on, but this seems like the most obvious explanation. And a corollary to that is, this switch has 700 microohms, 0.7 microohms, 0.7 ohms, 700 milliohms, sorry, of resistance. So there are solid state relays with 10 ohms, but you can find solid state relays with 200 milliohms or even less. And if they switch fast enough, and it looks like this is a big issue, then that'll be important to look for ones with a little bit less resistance that switch in the ballpark as quickly as this. And then also these are 60 volt AC, so you can go from 30 to -30, and it would be nice to have 80 or 100 or 200 or 400. So see if you can find some that fit those specs that also are a little higher voltage. So that'll be its own video. But this one, I'm just going to throw some wines on here, do it again, and see if things get better. And I'm going to order the higher voltage. I've already kind of picked some. I'll just show you how I picked them. No matter what, but I'm curious to see what happens. This thing's, you know, it's like you throw all the ingredients together and throw it in the oven, and you don't know what kind of cake you're going to end up with. So let's do that and see what we get. Okay, so I added about another 40 wines from 120 out to 160 on the primary. The resistance has gone from, it was bouncing back and forth between 0.6 and 0.7 up to 0.8. So we'll say 0.7 to 0.8. The induction is now 9.64 millihenries. It wasn't 3.14 before. It was somewhere around 6 from memory, which would sound about right. So we got that increased induction, and the thing to keep in mind is we got that increased induction not for going from 700 to 800 milliohms of resistance, because we got another 700 sitting in the switch, so from 1400 to 1500. So instead of a 1/7 increase in induction, it's really a 1/15 increase in resistance for the improvement in induction. And that's what I think is going on, why this thing is getting better with more wines. So let's see what it does. So here I'm just letting it freewheel, unloaded, and we're at 10 volts, and it's flipping from 10 to -9.19. I can't remember. I think it was -9.16 last time, but I can't remember it. So I think this is a little bit, I'd have to check the video. I think this might be a little bit better, but let's load it and see what it does. Okay, well, this is good. Gotta love it when a plan comes together. So that's what we're getting out of one secondary. That's what we're getting out of the other secondary. This is what the thing swings back to. And so here's what we had last time before I added the wines. Now I've copied everything, I've put that in there, I've put the new voltage in, which is less, 4.81, 4.84. That might have to do with the turns ratio. And I've put in that it swings back to 8.48 instead of 8.43. Now initially it looks bad, except we have to get the timing for how often this is going on, and because we have more wines and more induction, it's not 490. If we go back, it's now 930 is our on time. So when we put 930 in, now we get that. So a nice dramatic improvement. You can see our output went down, but our input went down more. So as I said, you're getting less throughput, but that ratio is better. So I'm going to run it in 20 and at 30 and see if we get this same kind of smooth improvement. So now I'm just running it at 30, and that's what we're getting now. This is what it swings back to. And when we look at it all on this spreadsheet, so there was 10 volts, there's a ratio, there's 20, and there's 30. So just sort of what I'd hope for. I can't go past 30 with that solid state relay. So that's good. I'm back to moving in the right direction. That's where we are now, and this was neat because the plan came together. And so I'm going to order some parts. I'm going to put some more wines on here. I'm going to alter the turns ratio there and see what that does. And back at you later. Stay healthy. Take care. Thanks for coming along.